He didn't choose them. He chose the dream. He always chose the dream. The question everyone asks is why Griffith sacrificed the people who loved him. That's the wrong question. The right one is whether he ever saw them as people at all. Griffith was not a man who had a dream. He was a man who was one. Most people carry ambition like a scar. It shapes them, it drives them, but underneath it, there's still a self that can rest, a self that exists when the goal is gone. Griffith had no such self. The dream of his own kingdom wasn't something he pursued. It was the only architecture his identity was ever built on. Psychologists describe this as contingent self-worth, a sense of identity so tightly bound to an external outcome that the self cannot exist independently of it. But Griffith's case went further. This wasn't contingent self-worth. This was the absence of self entirely. He said it himself. On the hills above Wyndham, watching his army celebrate, he looked at Guts, the one person he seemed to feel anything for, and told him exactly who he was. A true friend is someone who has a dream of equal caliber to my own. Not loyalty, not love, not shared history. A dream of equal caliber. He wasn't describing friendship. He was describing the only category of human being he was capable of recognizing as real. Look at how he built the band. A boy with a silver coin. An army assembled from nothing. He didn't recruit followers. He recruited extensions. Casca, Judo, Pippin, Rickert, each one devoted entirely to him. Each one willing to die for him. And he cared for them with something that felt like warmth. It wasn't warmth, it was function. He cared for them the way a general cares for his finest weapons, with something close to affection, with something that served the dream. The distinction matters enormously, because Griffith wasn't cruel to them. He wasn't performing. The care was genuine. The protection was real. He mourned their losses. He remembered their names, and it was still, at its foundation, a profound incapacity. He genuinely could not conceive of them as ends in themselves, only as extensions of something larger. And that something larger was always, only, the dream. He didn't know this about himself. That's the most important part. He wasn't calculating. He wasn't deceiving. He was simply a man whose inner architecture had never developed the room. Guts was the exception, not because Griffith chose to let him in, because Guts was the first person Griffith had ever encountered. Guts was the exception, not because Griffith chose to let him in, because Guts was the first person Griffith had ever encountered who couldn't be reduced to a function. He fought Guts and lost, and something in that loss was electric. For a man whose entire self was built on control, on forward momentum, on the certainty of destiny, encountering someone who simply could not be owned was destabilizing in a way nothing else had been. Griffith wanted to possess him, not as a romantic object, as a psychological one. He wanted Guts to belong to the dream, and Guts for years did. He gave Griffith his sword, his loyalty, something close to everything. But Guts had an inner life, his own yearning, his own idea of who he wanted to become. The day he decided to leave, the day he told Griffith he wanted to find his own dream, Griffith's architecture cracked. He didn't grieve. He couldn't. He acted out. The night Guts left, Griffith walked into Princess Charlotte's chambers. What happened wasn't desire. It was annihilation. The dream had been threatened by the one person he had never been able to fully instrumentalize. His psychology had no mechanism for that kind of loss, so he destroyed the dream himself, as if to say, if I can't control this, I'll end it, and they burned him for it. If this is landing for you, subscribe. We go deeper here, every time. One year, tongue removed, tendons severed, body destroyed. The Tower of Rebuke didn't break Griffith, it excavated him. Everything that remained after they took the dream, after they took his voice, his hands, his ability to ever fight again, was nothing. Not despair, not rage, not grief, nothing. He was carried out of that place by the people who had fought through an entire army just to reach him. Guts, Casca, the band of the Hawk, and he lay there, hollow. Psychologists studying severe identity disruption describe a particular state that occurs when the organizing principle of the self is removed. Not depression, not breakdown, something quieter. The self simply stops generating. That was Griffith in those weeks. The body was present. The person was gone. He watched Guts and Casca together and felt something move in him. But it wasn't jealousy in any ordinary sense. It was confirmation. The one person who had ever felt almost real to him had moved entirely beyond the reach of the dream. There was nothing left to be. The Beherit activated because he wished, not strategically, not out of rage or calculated revenge. He was lying in the grass, broken and empty, thinking of the only thing he had ever been. And the wish escaped him. The God Hand didn't corrupt Griffith. They didn't offer him something foreign or monstrous. They showed him the only destination the logic of his entire life had ever been building toward. In the eclipse, he was given a choice. Sacrifice the band, the instruments, the extensions, the fuel that had always served the dream, and be reborn as Femto, or die as a broken man with nothing left to be. He chose before the offer was finished, and here is what no one wants to say about that moment. It was the most consistent act of his entire life. Every decision Griffith ever made, from the silver coin to the battlefield to the dungeon floor, was the dream moving forward. The band of the Hawk was always expendable in that calculus, not because he hated them, because they were never the point. Femto is not what Griffith became under pressure. Femto is what Griffith always was, before the dream gave him a reason to pretend otherwise. This is where most analyses stop. Griffith as tragic monster, Griffith as fallen angel, the beautiful dream that became horror. But the tragedy isn't in the fall, it's in the fact that there was never anything to fall from. The beauty was always a projection. The band of the Hawk projected their love onto him, and he reflected it back, shaped perfectly by the dream into whatever they needed to believe in. He was a mirror, not a man, and mirrors don't betray you. They simply show you what was always there. Betrayal requires the capacity to truly see someone else. Griffith never had it. He gave them everything he was capable of giving. It was never enough, not because he was evil, because he was empty. Subscribe. We go deeper here, every time.